First of all, thank you so much for bringing this fantastic story about New York to the for DOC NYC. So what brought you to this story in the first place?
Okay.
What was your...
First of all, I get to thank you and Tom Powers and Raphael Nehausen for running this incredible festival. I want to thank all the staff and the volunteers as well. This has just been an honor. It was my dream to be at this festival, and you've made my dream come true, so thank you.
So much.
Okay, now what was the question?
So what brought you to this story? What is your connection to Manhattan Plaza? What's your connection? How did you get started with this story?
I am the one who walked away from my interview at Manhattan Plaza because I thought I couldn't live there in 1977. So I am the shameful one. But I was invited to direct the film, and I came to realize that this film is about the value of artists to communities. And I feel so strongly about that. I don't know about you, but when I grew up, I was kind of given a message that artists were parasites on society. And I learned through this film and the facts and the statistics that artists are great contributors to society. And I want this message out all across the country.
Absolutely. And Estelle, can you talk a little bit about how you got involved? And when you heard about this project being made, was it just an immediate...
No, I didn't get involved at all. Actors Equity called me up. And they said, we've got to go in front of they often called me to speak up for them, in front of the Board of Estimates to see if we can get some artist housing. And so I was, at the time, going to marry this really wonderful lawyer. He finally ended up later Corporation Counsel for the city. But between the two of us, we wrote what we thought was a perfect speech. So we went down to the Board of Estimate, faced all these guys. It's gone now, actually. My husband argued that case in the Supreme Court, but it's gone. And I gave this rousing speech, and it was just me and Helen Hayes. We were the only, busy working actors that had shown up. And so she said, I don't know what to say. What am I going to say? I said, listen, I've got a great speech. Just say what I say. So the two of us got up there and gave this rousing speech, and sure enough, we got it. But it was by no means a done deal. I mean, it was such a new idea, at least for everybody in that room, that we didn't really know whether it would work or not. It was not, oh yeah, everybody's going to know and love this, which now I think thanks to Manhattan Plaza, they do know and love it. But the film is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's totally inspiring. Absolutely incredible. It's just incredible. Oh.
Well, Alice, if I return back to you, so how did you kind of come up with a list of the people that you wanted in it? Who was on your dream list? Was there anyone that you really were just hoping to get involved that was no longer with us? I mean, if this was made at a different point, can you talk a little bit about sort of who else you would have loved to have been able to see this film?
Well, I think we really got all our major people, and thanks to our two producers, Nancy Perkins and Mary Jo Slater, who were Hollywood casting directors.
Right.
You couldn't ask for anyone better, that they had a lot of favors owed them. And so we worked for years to get some of the interviews, but they
but
really...
you didn't have Dylan Baker and Becky Ann Baker, and they always make me so mad because they have this wonderful apartment, right, with this wonderful terrace, and you didn't get them in the film.
Well,
maybe they didn't want to.
The thing is, we couldn't get
Maybe
everybody.
they were working.
that
Probably. They were too busy.
One of the hard things is we couldn't get everybody.
Sure,
that
of
we
course.
wanted. And so...
But I was like Alice. I didn't want to move in there. I thought, I have to see all these people at auditions. I have to see them my whole day long. Keep me away from them in my free hours, right? Yeah.
So,
isn't that how you felt?
could I just take a moment
Please.
for all the...
She hated the neighborhood.
Could I take a moment for all the people who worked on the film? I believe our cinematographer, John Hazard, is here. Another cinematographer, Lisa Rifkind, is here. All the people who worked on the film, Elena Takafundi, could you please stand up so we can acknowledge you?
Who is this?
The people
Great.
who worked on the film, yeah. And thank you. And that was our executive producer, Ken Aguado, a very modest guy, but
Wonderful.
there he is. And also the people that are here who live in Manhattan
Yes.
Plaza, who are actually the
Yes, stand up.
people
Anybody that
this
lives in
film is
Manhattan
made
Plaza.
for. Please stand up. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow.
Woo!
That's amazing.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank you.
If I can ask quickly, Lisa, if I can ask about the structure of the film and sort of finding the story and finding the ways of weaving in the various different elements, the history of it, the AIDS crisis, and all of those different elements. Can you talk a little bit about sort of putting the story together and finding that structure?
It was a lot of, well, as people who know the production know, it took 9 years on and off. Kind of hate to say that, but that was mostly about money. But we did have an awful lot of back and forth about how to tell this story, because there's so much to say about Hell's Kitchen and the history of that. There's so much to say about, there's a lot of roads you can go down along the way. So fortunately, we found some really good writers who ended up tightening it up and making a real narrative out of it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, interspersed with these little stories of different people in the building. And there's so many incredibly accomplished people who aren't in here.
Right.
One thing really kind of bothers me. I mean, we had Tom Fontana came from the building, and Marin Alsop, who was, I believe, the first woman major conductor of a major orchestra. I can't even, the list is too long.
So extras for the website, extras
Yes,
for
I hope so.
DVD
Yeah.
release?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. More questions from the audience? Yes, please, right here. And yeah.
Wijbenga. I'm actually from across the Hudson. A beautiful production, and I especially have questions about the editing. I'm really impressed with how back and forth, because there was footage probably from 1900 or a little bit, how the quality of the footage is very good, but also the photos, because you have blown up a large amount of photos who might not have the resolution as the original material. How did you get the quality in there so as it was?
Well, thank you. I thought a lot of the stock footage was looking pretty degraded up there, so I'm glad you thought so.
No, something was something done to them? Because I mean, I looked at the dots and I said, hey, this looks like an enhancement or an integration into the footage of like yesterday.
Great. Glad you thought so. We scanned all the photos at a very high resolution, and some of them were a bit poor quality to begin with, and you can only do so much. But that's why there's such a variety of qualities up there. There's really sharp stuff and terrible stuff, and I guess people have learned to accept that in documentaries.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Exactly.
You can't lose these fabulous
thank you.
images. You know.
Other questions? We've got a question right on this side. Somebody right next to you with a
Yes. Proud resident, fabulous film. Thank you for spreading the word. The message is so important. You mentioned money. I was just wondering what the budget was.
The budget question.
So we can't discuss that right now because we're negotiating, trying to make it available to a wider public, that our whole goal is to make sure this goes out across the country. We made the film as what I call a conversation starter. It's to appeal to a broad audience. It's to get people thinking about, I mean, I was asked, what would you like people to walk out of the theater with? And I would say I would like people to walk out of the theater saying, how can we have that happen in our community?
Yeah.
So let's hope that we can get it out there. I think the film is a blueprint because I want people to see it. People might say, oh, it's kind of Manhattan Plaza specific. Yes, it is, so you can see what you need to do in order to create this kind of community in your town, in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
But you do have the wonderful section, I think, with the other communities around the U.S.,
Yes.
which I think is really important to show that the influence of artists and being able to support artists
Right,
and what
and
they
Manhattan Plaza is the pioneer for that, so thank you all.
bring. Yes.
Yeah.
We have time for a couple more questions. I see one right back there. We're making Rachel run up and down.
My name is Lily Fable. I'm a lifelong resident of 42nd Street, and I really want to say something about Rodney Kirk. He wanted Manhattan Plaza to be not only a home for the actors and everyone involved in theater, he didn't want it cut off. He wanted them involved in the neighborhood, and he started in the very early years a little tour. I was part of those tours that lasted 2 and 3 hours, taking new residents to every store on 9th Avenue, introducing them, telling them that they could have their watch fixed or their shoes shined or where they could buy the best apples. They learned how to be part of this community. Estelle comes into our store all the time. Pat, I used to play tennis with years ago, but it really has become my God.
Showing
My
felt-face
arms
tennis,
and my
too.
legs are gone. But the thing is, it really is a community package, and it has never changed. Rodney, Richard, the people that have been involved are still involved in so many ways.
Yeah.
But the film is fantastic.
Thanks.
I think everyone who lives there should
Let's
come
give a
and see
shout out
this.
to Richard, too. Richard is
Richard,
here. Richard,
yes.
could you stand, please?
Great.
Who's he?
Richard Hunnings. There he is.
Wonderful. That's great. So we have time for one last question. One last question. I see you, sir.
I'm a proud resident. My one question was my favorite line of the film. Could you repeat that line about Cleveland, the fire?
So good. What is it? New York City will turn into, without Manhattan Plaza, New York City will turn into 5 Clevelands.
That's excellent. So I hate to say it, but we do have to wrap things up. I want to thank you all so much for being up here and for bringing this film to DOC NYC. Thank you so much.